And most of you have understood you. Dear fellow fighters for justice, because Palestine means justice. You know, we speak about the genocide being committed by Israel. Correct. But to get the full picture, we should say the genocide being committed by Israel and permitted by the international community with very few exceptions. Now, the ICJ, I will not say that it is neither international nor a court of justice, as Jawaharlal Nehru once said about the ICS. I have the highest respect for the ICJ. But at the same time, I should say that it took a small step in the right direction. A calculatedly small step. Another thing is that a strange use of the English language. The mention was made by Mr. Grover, and I agree with every word he said. Plausible. Now, in the text they say, ICJ asks itself a question. Have the violation of the rights of the group as alleged by South Africa have been committed by Israel? And then it says plausible rights. The adjective plausible is applied to rights. Now tell me, as already pointed out, the ICJ says that the Palestinians do come under the ambit of the definition of genocide. And as already pointed out, how many? More, about 26,000 of them had been killed till then. No, I mean, when the ICJ verdict was being given. So, well, what is the most fundamental right? The right to life. If you don't have the right to life, what is the use of all other rights? And do the Palestinians have that right? Well, I don't think we have to tell the ICJ about the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, why did they use the word plausible? Of course, there can be legal argument, lawyers use words, according in their own fashion. But ICJ is meant to give a verdict which is understandable for the international community, not only for lawyers. Now, so my short answer is that, or rather, the question, why did the ICJ fail to call a spade a spade? Well, the short answer is the ICJ did not give a verdict without fear or favor. Justice, the judge is supposed to give a verdict without fear or without favor. Now that's not what ICJ did. But anyway, this is only the beginning. But now comes another question. Eminent jurists have said it would take months and months, if not longer, for the ICJ to determine whether genocide was being committed. Now, I find it a little difficult to understand. And let me ask the ICJ, what is the point of determining that genocide was committed post facto, after so many thousands have been killed? And why should it take so that long? Are not the facts obvious? So, there is some problem there. Now, let us look at the big picture, because ICJ is only part of the big picture. It's the United Nations highest court, and we know that the Security Council has till now failed. Why? That is because the West, under the leadership of the United States, speaks about a rule-based international order, but that applies only to the West. What happens to the rest of the world doesn't matter. A Western life is very valuable. Non-Western lives, well, they do not practically count. When, civilians die in Ukraine, the West, the government and the media, correctly, they speak about it. But when civilians die elsewhere, well, sometimes they don't have the time. Now, about Holocaust. I had written an article saying that is Netanyahu imitating Hitler while Biden is sleepwalking to electoral disaster? Well, it seems that is happening. The only difference between the Holocaust and what is now happening, that this one is televised. That Holocaust, well, we came to know much later. But what is sad is that despite it being televised, the international community is permitting it to continue. Now, to go back to ICJ for a second, 50 states have transmitted their intention to make presentations. I went through the list. I could not locate India's name. Well, the leader of the Global South, Vishwaguru, Vishwamitra, well, please speak up. Let a message go from here to the Kartavya path to the South Block. To New York, the Security Council, to The Hague, the ICJ, and to Palestine. Question, is India a diminished democracy? I wouldn't say that. We are not a diminished democracy. We are a self-correcting democracy. And we shall overcome. This too shall pass. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Fabian, for keeping time. ऐसे मौकों पे एक्चुअली ये जो हमें साइन बोर्ड दिखाने और घंटी बजाना अच्छा नहीं लगता है, पर वो भी एक सेल्फ करेक्शन को हम खराब तरीका मानते हैं. हमारे अगले वक्ता हैं अगेन somebody who needs no introduction, सिद्धार्थ बलराजन. जैसे कि आप सभी उपस्थित होंगे, आप एक ही न्यूज़ सोर्स हमारे पास बाकी है जिसको हम पढ़ के फिर सीख सकते हैं और एक्चुअली जिस पे लड़ाई कर सकते हैं, वो है द वायर. ये फाउंडर एडिटर हैं. उससे पहले बहुत साल से जर्मनी से रह चुके हिंदू के भी एडिटर थे। एंड मोस्ट रिसेंटली हम सिद्धार्थ ने तो सब इश्यूज के बारे में ऐसी खूबसूरती से लिखा है, पर आई थिंक one of the most important things that Siddharth has said, I guess we'll have to say last week, because he says important things every week, is that finally the ICJ has given a name to the historic injustice that the Palestinians have been facing. जो हम यहाँ पूरा जो मजमा बैठा है वो फिलिस्तीनी को सपोर्ट क्यों हुआ है, हमें मालूम है कि 1948 एक डेट ले सकते हैं, पर उससे पहले एक नरसिंहार हो रहा है और एक जेनोसाइड हो रहा है फिलिस्तीनियों के ऊपर, और आज 2024 में उसका फाइनली उसको नाम मिला है। वो हिस्टोरिकली जो इंजस्टिस है उसका नाम है जेनोसाइड। तो मैं सिद्धार्थ से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगी कि वो आकर के आप आइए
जी। मैं English? English? Okay. Well, I think for the sake of our friends from overseas, I'll speak in English. Let me throw in a few Hindi words here in the sentences. You know, for the longest time, we have lived under the illusion, in a way cherished the illusion, that as human beings, successive generations of human beings, we allowed all kinds of atrocities to happen. The mass slaughter of recruited, enlisted men in World War I, the insane killing of civilians and the Holocaust in World War II. We allowed this to happen because we didn't know what was happening. In the Allied occupation of Germany, one of the important steps that the Allies took was to show movie reels and photographs of concentration camps to the German population, on the assumption that they didn't know what was happening. And if only they had known, they might have prevented it. And the West certainly. And of course, there's a whole literature now as to how the West was pretty well informed as to what was happening. First word of what was happening in Auschwitz was available well before the Red Army liberated that camp and exposed the horrors to the world. But the illusion that we lived under was that if only the world could have seen it, if only we'd seen those images, if only we'd seen that footage, we would have risen as one and ensured that it didn't happen. And I'm sorry to say that what the Gaza genocide has proved to us is that it doesn't matter. You can have any kind of footage, and we all have seen heartrending photographs, video clips, audio clips of mass murder, of genocide happening in real time before our very eyes. The same footage is available to the entire world, to all world leaders. Yet, you still have countries and leaders who hesitate about something so basic as demanding a ceasefire. You have countries that continue to sell weaponry to perpetuate the killing that is happening, including the government of India, because recently, as we saw in the media, there were reports of the Adani Elbit joint venture in Hyderabad selling drones to the IDF, the same kind of drones that are being used. Doesn't matter if the one made in Hyderabad is currently in use, these weapons are fungible. So, all the footage that we can see, all the imagery that we know, has not made one bit of difference to a certain category of world leaders, certain kind of government. Of course, the most culpable in this regard is the United States, which has in the past used its influence and authority and power over the Israeli state to put an end to the insane use of force as and when it's happened, as and when they chose to in the past. And people have cited the 80s Israeli attack on Lebanon as an example. The United States is consciously choosing to allow the genocidal killing of Palestinians to continue. But it's not just the United States that's culpable. Ambassador Fabian spoke about the Vishwa Guru complex. Our foreign minister loves using the phrase Vishwamitra, India is a friend of the world. What kind of a friend of the world are you? When you do not want to lift a finger, when you do not want to speak the truth about what is happening. I saw his participation in the Munich Security Conference the other day. He was on a panel with the American Secretary of State and the German Foreign Minister. And these three foreign ministers were talking as if the ICJ did not exist. There was no reference to what the ICJ had found. Two of those three foreign ministers, their governments had judges on that panel. And this was as unanimous, as convincing a verdict as you can get. But this is irrelevant as far as they are concerned, because they don't want to do anything to stop the killing. I was astonished that the foreign minister believes that you can have business as usual. The other day, speaking at the Raisina dialogue in Delhi, he chose to wax eloquent about the so-called India-Middle East economic corridor. Why? Because he says the turmoil in the Red Sea shows the importance of the new corridor. Hello, this new corridor is supposed to run through Israel. Israel is in the middle of conducting a genocidal war. The turmoil in the Red Sea is a result of that genocidal war. And you have a foreign minister who cannot join the dots and come to a simple conclusion. And we have to look, and the same foreign minister, the same prime minister take great pride in saying India as a leader of Global South, how as G20 president we gave voice to Global South and so on and so forth. The real leaders of the Global South today are South Africa, Brazil, whose President Lula made a very, very sharp observation, which led the Israeli Prime Minister to say he's persona non grata, and I would say that Lula will probably wear that as a badge of honor. So there are countries, there are leaders who are willing to stand up and speak out for what is correct. Here, not only does the government not speak, the government is complicit. Jean mentioned how the government of India is facilitating the export of a new kind of indentured labor. Not only are you subjecting Indian workers to all the risks that come with working in a conflict zone, but you are undermining the decades-long solidarity between India and Palestine, between the people of India and Palestine. You are making it easier for the Israeli state to target Palestinian civilians, deprive them of their livelihood. We're talking about a people who live under illegal occupation. There's a second hearing going on at the ICJ based on a recommendation by the UN General Assembly on the consequences of Israel's continued illegal occupation of Palestinian territories. India again is one of the countries that's not going to be speaking there. I saw a very good presentation about Bangladesh and by lots of other countries. But we're talking about an occupied people already living at the edge, being deprived of any economic opportunities, and now the Modi government being complicit, making it easier for Benjamin Netanyahu to do what he's doing. Worse, when people in India want to raise their voice, you can't have a public protest in Delhi. We've seen examples of people in Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and other states being prosecuted for a WhatsApp status or a Facebook post in solidarity with the people of Palestine. So there is no freedom of speech when it comes to the people of India